Welcome to Taking Stock. I'm Amanda Lang. Coming up on the show, red tape is costing us billions, so how do we reduce it? And redrawing the map of auto production in Canada. Plus, stress at work is growing for many. What do managers need to know? That's all ahead. First, for the week that was in business, it's time for the briefs. Prime Minister Carney met with U.S. President Trump in the Oval Office this week and politely reiterated that Canada is not for sale. The two then began discussions on the specifics of our trade relationship, but both were clear the talks are a starting point only. Data this week showed that Canadian exports to the U.S. dropped 6.6% in March, almost completely made up for by exports to other parts of the world. Hollywood was left rattled and baffled by a plan for tariffs on foreign productions this week after President Trump said he wants 100% tariffs on movies made outside of the U.S., which industry insiders said would bring production to a virtual standstill. It's unclear what, if anything, concrete will follow the surprise announcement. The U.S. and U.K. agreed on a trade deal which will see baseline tariffs of 10% on U.K. imports, but reduce other tariffs that are as high as 25% on British autos, steel, and aluminum. The agreement includes a quota of a set number of U.K. cars that can be imported to the U.S. at the 10% rate, while other items will be tariff-free. Ford detailed the costs of tariffs on its auto business this week, even as it exceeded expectations for profit in the first 3 months of the year. Ford said tariffs will cost $2.5 billion this year alone, though it hopes to offset that with $1 billion in savings and cost increases. Ford also suspended further guidance for the rest of the year. Calgary-based fuel distributor Parkland is being purchased by U.S.-based gas station operator Sunoco for $7.1 billion plus Parkland's debt. Parkland has been engaged in a fight for control with dissident shareholders. The combination of the two would create the largest fuel distributor in North America. Parkland operates 4,000 gas stations under the Esso, Chevron, Ultramar, and Pioneer brand names. And those are your business briefs. The rise of red tape is a huge concern for Canadian business, and for small firms comes at the cost of $10,200 per employee. It feels like an easy fix for government hoping to help the economy. Krystle Wittevrongel is Director of Research at the Montreal Economic Institute. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So this is your data, and it's startling, I found, in terms of the drag on economic growth, on potential employment. We talk a lot about regulation and red tape, and I wanted to start with, do you think that the people in charge of these things, i.e. governments and regulators, would be shocked at what's there? Do they even know what they're putting onto small businesses and big businesses?
I honestly don't know, because if we look at some of the regulations, they seem to be have silly consequences or unintended consequences. And so I really don't think that there has been a whole lot of thought put into the unintended consequences of some of the individual regulations, which, when we see that they have increased the number of federal regulatory requirements 37% between 2006 and 2015, there's been, some that have definitely been overlooked.
So if we were committed to higher efficiency, which is higher productivity, you would imagine, of course, we would streamline some of those. Having looked at them and the growth of them, what's your thought about how easy it would be to prune some of these regulations? Is that a massive and complex job, or is it something that we could do if we had the right focus on it?
It's definitely complex, but requires a focus that would then make it somewhat simplistic. So we need to really look at and take a page from the Krystle government from the 1990s, which asked tough questions about every program that they had in place and cut what wasn't working, which is what we need to do currently in Canada with regulations. So we need to ask them very, very hard questions, but very simple questions that require a review of every rule and regulation in place, keep what works, get rid of what doesn't, and help move things along.
So one of the things, of course, that's so amazing about the data here is that that growth came after that hard work that was done by that government, which was part of a process, a more broad process about getting kind of our fiscal balance in line and just kind of right-sizing government in general. Why do you have any thought about why it grew that way? Why did we see such a rash of regulations come on between 2006 and 2015?
Well, it was between 2006 and 2021, but there's many different reasons. Some like to ponder that, it's a complex world, so we need more regulation, but a complex world doesn't necessarily mean more regulations. It just means looking at things with a more stringent lens in terms of what is actually needed. So there's definitely been many hypotheses out there, but there's not one single right answer to that, unfortunately.
Do you feel as though the tone right now in Ottawa would welcome this kind of notion that, you know, this actually gives ammunition to people who might be looking to clear a path for business?
I would hope so. I mean, this regulatory overload is choking entrepreneurship across the country, in addition to all of the other growth problems that you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. So the number of new businesses starting in Canada has cut in half since the year 2000. So we're talking a lot about GDP growth, about labor growth, productivity. We also need to look at other indicators like that, and this is one that can really be put into place to start to bring some of that into line, and a new government should definitely be taking this into advisement and into consideration.
Absolutely. Thanks for being with us for this, Krystle. So helpful. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Krystle Wittevrongel is Director of Research at the Montreal Economic Institute. Coming up, perhaps the most pressing order of business when it comes to U.S. trade is agreeing on the future of the North American auto industry. That's next.